I destroyed my life with one sentence, when I confessed a secret that should have died with me. I remember the exact moment those words left my mouth. My throat burned, my palms were damp, and I forced the truth out like I was tearing something alive out of myself. I thought I was unburdening. I thought I was finally safe, because I was sharing it with the one person who had never betrayed me. But the moment I said it, I felt the air change. I knew I had just set something in motion I could never stop. The secret had been with me for over a decade. It lived in every pause when my husband asked why we never had children, in every fake smile at baby showers, in every doctor's waiting room where I left with another prescription that never worked. To him, it was a medical problem. To me, it was a shadow I carried alone. For years, I convinced myself I would take it to the grave. I had almost trained myself to believe it had never happened, that I had imagined it. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, when I heard him breathing next to me, I felt the weight of it pressing on my chest. I never planned to tell him. I never planned to tell anyone, until that night. It was late, and I was sitting with my best friend, Hannah. We had known each other since we were kids, since braces and high school lockers and late-night phone calls about boys who never mattered. Through everything, college, weddings, family funerals, she had been my constant. If there was anyone in this world I could trust, it was her. That was what I believed. The wine made me reckless. Or maybe it was not the wine at all. Maybe it was the silence in her living room, the way she looked at me, like she knew I was holding something back. She asked me how things really were with Michael. I tried to brush it off, said we were fine, just tired, just busy. But she leaned in closer, her voice low, soft, the way she always spoke when she wanted to pull something out of me. You can tell me. I know you, remember? You're hiding something. And just like that, I broke. I told her the truth. I told her what I had done 10 years earlier, when Michael and I were still dating, when I was too young and too scared to imagine the weight of forever. I told her about the clinic, about how I never told him, about how afterward nothing was ever the same, and about how year after year every negative test made me wonder if I had ruined everything before it even began. I expected shock, maybe even disgust. But what I saw on her face was something else, something I could not read at first. Her eyes widened and then narrowed, and she tilted her head slightly, like she was storing my words in a place she would never forget. She reached for my hand and squeezed it, said she would take this to her grave. She promised no one would ever know, but it was the way she said it, too calm, too measured. I tried to shake the feeling. I told myself it was just my paranoia, that I was imagining the flicker in her expression. She hugged me before I left, told me again that my secret was safe, that she loved me like a sister. But when I got home that night and lay in bed next to Michael, staring at the ceiling, I realized what I had done. I had handed over the one thing that could burn my marriage to the ground. I could still hear my own voice echoing in my head. I had an abortion, and I never told him. The words were out in the world now. They no longer belonged only to me. And the worst part was knowing I could never take them back. Would she keep her promise? Or had I just given her the weapon that would end everything? When I was a kid, I used to think Hannah and I would grow old together the way sisters do. We met when we were 11, when my family moved into the neighborhood next to hers. She was the first person who talked to me at school. From that day on, We were inseparable. We had sleepovers almost every weekend, passed notes in class, covered for each other when we were sneaking out. Later, in high school, we told each other every detail about crushes, breakups, first kisses. She was the one who drove me to my first job interview. I was the one who held her hair back when she got drunk for the first time. Our lives ran side by side, sometimes messy, but always together. Through college, through the chaos of figuring out careers and boyfriends, we stayed the same. We were each other's emergency contact forms, each other's bridesmaids, each other's person. Even when life got busy, I never questioned whether she was loyal to me. She was, always. When I married Michael, she was the one who gave the longest toast at our wedding. She said that no one knew me the way she did, and she made a joke about how she knew every embarrassing story from my teenage years. Michael laughed along with everyone else, but later he told me, "You two are like twins. It's almost intimidating." I remember smiling when he said that. I thought it was a blessing. For years, it felt like it was. She was always around. Birthdays, holidays, random weeknights when she would stop by with takeout. Sometimes I thought she spent more time in my house than in her own. Michael never minded. He said it was good that I had someone like her, someone who filled the spaces he could not. That was the rhythm of our lives. My husband and my best friend, the two people I trusted more than anyone else in the world. Looking back, I can see why I never questioned it. We were so close that I never believed she could hurt me. It was not even something I considered possible. If there was one person in my life who I thought would never betray me, it was her. That is probably why I felt almost relieved when I told her my secret. Like I had placed the weight in her hands, and she would guard it for me the way she always did. At least that was what I told myself that night, the days after I confessed. Everything seemed normal. She texted me as usual, sent me memes, asked me if I wanted to grab coffee. Michael came home every night, tired from work, asking about dinner or what bills had to be paid. Nothing felt different. For a moment, I believed maybe nothing would change, but then little things started to shift. It began with Hannah's questions. They seemed innocent at first. She asked if I had ever thought about telling Michael the truth. I brushed it off, said it was too late for that it would only destroy us. She nodded like she understood, but the next time we met, she asked again, in a different way. "Do you think he would forgive you?" she said, one afternoon, while we sat on her couch. I tried to laugh it off. "I don't know. I don't want to find out." But she pressed further. "I mean, he loves you. He's always been good to you. Maybe he deserves to know." Her words sat heavy in the air. I changed the subject, but she circled back to it later, almost casually, like she was just curious. "Does he ever ask why you can't have kids? What do you tell him?" I answered too quickly. "I tell him it's medical, because it is. That's what the doctor said." She gave me a look, like she did not believe me, like she knew something I did not. From that day on, she kept poking at the wound. Not every time we talked, but enough that it became clear she was not letting it go. Sometimes her tone was gentle, like she was worried about me. Other times it was sharper, almost like she was testing me. One night, she said, "I can see it, you know. The way you tense up when he mentions kids. He must notice too." Her words cut deeper than she probably realized. Or maybe she did realize. Maybe that was the point. I remember going home that night and lying awake next to Michael, wondering if she was right. Did he notice? Did he ever suspect? He never said anything, but he was not blind. He had to feel the distance that grew between us every time the subject of children came up. Hannah had always been good at reading people. It was part of why I loved her, why I trusted her. But now it felt like she was using it against me. She saw straight through me, and instead of covering for me the way she used to, she seemed determined to drag the truth out into the open. At first I thought maybe she was just worried, that she thought she was helping me. But the more she asked, the more it felt like she was enjoying it, like she had something over me now. There was a look in her eyes I had never seen before. Not pity, not love, something colder, a glint, almost like triumph, every time I stumbled over an answer. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that she was still my best friend, that she would never use this against me. But deep down, a part of me started to feel uneasy. She had my secret now. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if I had made a mistake trusting her. Still, I pushed that thought away. Because how could I believe it? This was Hannah, the girl who stood beside me in every major moment of my life. The one who promised, through tears and laughter, that we would always have each other. But then, a week after I confessed, she asked me something that made my stomach drop. Does he really not know anything? Not even a hint? I froze. My throat went dry. When I finally managed to shake my head, she smiled. Just a little. Too quickly. And for the first time since I told her, I felt afraid. Why did she want to know so badly? When she asked me if Michael had even the slightest hint, I told myself to let it slide. But the question didn't leave me. It followed me home, clung to me as I stood in the kitchen, as I folded laundry, as I brushed my teeth. I could hear her voice repeating it, soft but sharp. Does he really not know anything? That night, lying next to Michael, I watched him unlock his phone with his thumbprint, scrolling through emails while I pretended to be asleep. My chest tightened. I realized how different things had become. My phone had a passcode now. It had not always been that way. Years earlier, we both left our phones unlocked, not because we had nothing to hide, but because the thought of hiding never crossed our minds. Now mine was locked, and I guarded it like a shield. Michael never said anything about it, but I noticed how his eyes lingered whenever I picked up my phone. If I turned the screen away, he looked a second longer. It wasn't accusation, more like curiosity, but I felt it, and it made me restless. Our intimacy had changed too. There were nights we barely touched, not because of arguments, not because of anger, but because there was a distance I couldn't close. I turned away from him sometimes, pretending I was tired. Other times he reached for me and I froze before I forced myself to respond. He noticed. I knew he noticed. Every time he sighed, every time he rolled to his side and let sleep take him without a word, I felt the secret wedged between us. I didn't need Hannah to tell me he saw the cracks. I already knew. The pressure built until one evening when Hannah pressed me harder than ever. We were sitting outside a cafe, the traffic loud in the background, when she leaned in and whispered, "You're torturing yourself. Just tell him." I snapped. "I can't." She raised an eyebrow. "Why not? It was years ago. You were young. He would understand." I shook my head so fast my vision blurred. "You don't get it. He won't understand. If he knew, it would be the end." Her lips curved, just slightly, like she was satisfied with that answer. Then she said quietly, "So that's it? You'll just keep it forever?" I should have walked away then, I should have stopped answering her questions, but instead, like someone addicted to pain, I gave her more. I told her the rest. I told her that 10 years earlier, when Michael and I were only dating, I got pregnant. I told her I panicked. I told her I went to the clinic alone without telling him, because I thought if he knew he would leave me. I thought he wasn't ready for something that permanent. Truthfully, neither was I. And after that day, nothing was the same. I explained how, after we got married, we tried for years to have children. How every doctor said they couldn't find a clear reason why nothing worked. How we tried medication, treatments, tests, but nothing changed. I confessed what I had never said out loud to anyone, that in my mind, I always connected it back to the abortion. I never had proof. The doctors said there was no clear link. They said sometimes these things just happen. But I couldn't shake the thought that maybe I had broken something in myself. Maybe I had ruined our future before it even began. The words spilled out like I couldn't stop them. I told her how every baby announcement from friends felt like a reminder. How Michael's face fell each time we left another appointment with no answers. How sometimes I thought he blamed me, even though he never said it. And how, in the darkest corners of my mind, I blamed myself. When I finished, Hannah just sat there, staring at me. Her eyes glistened, but not with tears. They shone in a way I couldn't place, like she was holding something valuable, something powerful. She reached across the table and touched my arm. I promise. This stays between us. Her words should have calmed me, but her expression told a different story. The way her lips pressed together too tightly, the way her eyes lit up, almost like she had just won something. I walked home with a knot in my stomach. For years, Hannah had been the one person I never doubted. Now, after handing her my darkest truth, I felt exposed, vulnerable, and for the first time, I wondered if her loyalty was as solid as I had always believed. That night, I lay in bed next to Michael, my phone locked on the nightstand, his back turned toward me. He didn't know the truth. Not about the abortion, not about the years of guilt, not about the secret I had just handed to someone else. But Hannah did. And when I closed my eyes, all I could see was the look on her face, the flicker in her eyes that made me feel like I had just placed a weapon in her hands. Why did she look like she was ready to use it? The night it all came out started like any other. Michael came home from work, dropped his bag by the door, and loosened his tie. I was in the kitchen, pretending to scroll through my phone while dinner simmered on the stove. I remember the smell of garlic filling the room, but even stronger than that was the tension in his silence. He didn't greet me with his usual tired half smile. He didn't ask about my day. Instead, he leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes fixed on me. I looked up, expecting him to ask something simple, maybe if the bills were paid, or if we had plans for the weekend. But his voice was low and steady when he said, "Why am I finding out about your abortion from other people?" The world seemed to tilt. I dropped my phone onto the counter, my fingers numb. I stared at him, searching for any sign that I had misheard. But he wasn't joking. He wasn't mistaken. He knew. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My throat tightened, my chest locked, and all I could do was blink at him. His expression was unreadable. Not angry, not devastated, just controlled. Almost too controlled. That calm was worse than any shouting. I finally managed to whisper, "Who told you?" His jaw clenched. He didn't answer. The silence was deafening. I tried again. "Michael, Who said that? He shook his head slowly, like he couldn't believe me. That's what you care about? Who told me? Not the fact that it's true? My knees almost gave out. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. Yes, I whispered, my voice cracking. It's true, but it was before us, before we were married. I was scared. He cut me off. Don't. His voice was sharp, final. The shame was instant and crushing. The words I wanted to say, about fear, about youth, about mistakes, died in my throat. He wasn't asking for explanations. He didn't want excuses. He wanted the truth. And the truth was already poisoned because he hadn't heard it from me. He looked at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. All these years, we've been trying, and I've been blaming myself. And you never thought to tell me? My lips parted, but nothing came out. The truth was, I had thought about it 1,000 times. I had rehearsed conversations in my head, imagined different versions of his reactions. But every time I pictured it, I saw our marriage collapsing. I told myself silence was protection. I told myself he would never understand. And now, none of that mattered. Because he hadn't heard it from me. He knew from someone else. Someone close enough to him that it carried weight. I thought of Hannah, her eyes gleaming across that cafe table. The way she leaned in, pressing me, storing every word. I wanted to scream her name. I wanted to tell him, it wasn't me who betrayed you. It was her. But my body froze. My mind replayed the image of him looking at me, disappointment carved into every line of his face. If I accused Hannah, would he even believe me? Or would it sound like I was deflecting blame, trying to save myself at her expense? I pictured him asking, so you lied to me for 10 years, and now you want me to believe this is someone else's fault? The answer was clear. He wouldn't believe me. Not now. So I swallowed her name. Michael didn't yell. He didn't slam doors or throw things. He just stood there, silent, watching me crumble. That silence was unbearable. I wanted him to shout, to demand answers, to give me something to fight against. But instead, he let the weight of my own guilt crush me in the quiet. Finally, he turned and walked down the hallway. His footsteps were heavy, but measured, like he was keeping himself in control. A moment later, the bedroom door closed. I stayed in the kitchen, my hands trembling, my stomach in knots. The food on the stove burned, but I didn't move. I couldn't. My mind was stuck on one thing. Hannah had done this. She had promised me. She had looked me in the eye and sworn it would never leave her lips. And now Michael knew. There was no one else it could have been. But I couldn't tell him that. Not without sounding desperate. Not without looking like a liar trying to shift the blame. So I sat in the kitchen, staring at the scorched pan, the smell of burned food filling the room, and I stayed silent later, when I finally gathered the courage to enter the bedroom. Michael was lying on his side, his back to me. His breathing was slow, steady, like he was asleep. But I knew he wasn't. He was awake, choosing not to speak. I slid into bed, the mattress dipping under my weight. But he didn't move toward me, didn't reach for me. That was the night I understood something had broken. And it wasn't just between me and him. It was between me and Hannah. Because the one person I had trusted more than anyone else had handed my secret to the man I loved. And she had done it knowing it would destroy me. What I didn't know yet was why. The days after that night felt unreal. Michael didn't leave, didn't explode, didn't demand more answers. But he wasn't the same either. He moved through the house like a shadow, watching me in a way that made my skin crawl. His silence was louder than any argument we could have had. Every morning he went to work without a word about the night before. Every evening he came home and sat across from me at the dinner table, his eyes lingering just long enough to remind me he hadn't forgotten. He wasn't asking questions anymore. He was studying me, measuring me. I told myself I should explain, that I should fill the silence with something that would make him see me as more than just a liar. But every time I opened my mouth, I froze. The words wouldn't come. Because if I said them out loud, it would only sound like excuses. The truth was, I wanted to scream that it wasn't me who betrayed him, that Hannah had taken my confession and turned it into a weapon. But in the same second, I pictured his face, the disbelief in his eyes, the way he'd think I was trying to throw my best friend under the bus to avoid my own guilt. I couldn't risk it, so I played the part of the guilty wife. I moved carefully around him, watching his moods, waiting for signs of where we stood. I cooked meals, folded laundry, asked about his day, all with a voice that trembled no matter how hard I tried to steady it. On the outside, I looked like someone desperate to fix what was broken. On the inside, I was collapsing. Because I wasn't just carrying the weight of what I had done 10 years ago. I was carrying the weight of what Hannah had done now. She had betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. And yet, to Michael, it looked like I was the only one to blame. Nights were the worst. Lying in bed, I could feel the distance between us like a wall. He didn't touch me. Sometimes he didn't even look at me. He was waiting, I realized, watching what I would do. The silence stretched into days, then weeks. I went through the motions, but every time my phone buzzed, my stomach clenched. I was terrified it would be Hannah, that she would somehow twist the knife even further. And then one night, the call came. Her name lit up my screen. For a moment, I considered letting it ring, pretending I didn't see it. But I couldn't look away. My hand shook as I picked up. Her voice was sweet, almost too sweet. "Hey, I just wanted to check in on you. I know things must be hard right now, but remember, I'm here, always." I couldn't find words. My throat locked. She kept going, her tone dripping with sympathy. "You don't have to go through this alone. You know that, right? I'll always be by your side." Every word made my stomach turn. She sounded like she was comforting me, but underneath it, I could hear it. The satisfaction. The reminder that she was the one who had set all of this in motion. I forced out a quiet thanks before hanging up. Afterward, I sat in the dark, staring at the wall, realizing I was trapped. To Michael, I was the liar who had hidden the truth. To Hannah, I was the fool who had given her ammunition. I was being crushed from both sides, and there was no one left to defend me. That night I lay awake long after Michael's breathing slowed beside me. My eyes burned, but I couldn't cry. I just kept replaying Hannah's voice in my head. "If you need anything, I'm always here." She said it like a friend, but I knew better now. She wasn't here to help me. She was here to watch me fall. And Michael? He was watching too. The only question left was how long he would keep playing this game before he finally decided to end it. The night it finally broke, the air in the house felt different. I could sense it the moment Michael walked in. He didn't loosen his tie, didn't kick off his shoes, didn't greet me at all. He just walked past me into the bedroom. I followed a few minutes later and found him pulling clothes from the closet. His suitcase lay open on the bed, half filled. My heart dropped, but I couldn't make myself move. I stood in the doorway, gripping the frame like it was the only thing holding me up. "Michael," I whispered. He didn't look at me. He folded one of his shirts and placed it neatly in the suitcase. His hands were steady. Too steady. "What are you doing?" My voice shook, though I already knew the answer. He zipped the side pocket and finally turned to face me. His eyes were unreadable, but his jaw was tight, his shoulders tense. "You could have told me," he said quietly. "You could have said it yourself." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He went on, his voice sharper now, but instead I heard it from someone else. "You had a chance to be honest, and you chose silence." I took a step toward him, shaking my head. I was scared. I didn't know how. He cut me off. "No, don't make excuses. You made a choice, and now I have to make mine." I wanted to scream that it wasn't me who betrayed him, that Hannah had stolen the truth and thrown it in his face. But his eyes stopped me. There was no room left for explanations. He didn't want them. He pulled the zipper closed on the suitcase and lifted it from the bed. At the door, he paused, his hand on the frame. He didn't look back, but his words hit harder than anything else he could have said. "You're the reason we don't have children." Then he was gone. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the house, followed by silence so thick it felt unbearable. I sank onto the bed, staring at the empty space where his suitcase had been. His words repeated in my head over and over until they didn't sound like his voice anymore. They sounded like mine. "You're the reason we don't have children." I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, maybe hours. Time blurred. All I knew was that he wasn't coming back. When I finally dragged myself up and wandered into the kitchen, my phone buzzed on the counter. The name on the screen made my stomach twist. Hannah. I almost didn't answer, but my hands moved before my mind caught up. Her voice was light, almost cheerful. "Hey, I just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" For a second, I couldn't breathe. She sounded like she didn't already know, like she wasn't the reason my marriage had just collapsed. I forced out a flat, "Fine." She clicked her tongue sympathetically. I figured things might be tense. You know, these things, they're never easy, but you're strong. You'll get through it. Her words made me nauseous. She spoke as if she hadn't been the one to destroy everything. I ended the call as quickly as I could, my hands trembling. That night, I sat alone in the dark, the silence pressing in around me. Every sound from outside, the distant hum of cars, the bark of a neighbor's dog, felt amplified against the emptiness of the house. Michael was gone, and Hannah's voice was the only one that filled the void. Days blurred together after that. I moved like a ghost through my own home, pretending to eat, pretending to sleep. I avoided calls, avoided neighbors, avoided mirrors, and then, a week later, the truth I had been trying not to face came crashing down in the most ordinary way possible. I was walking home from the grocery store, my head down, when my neighbor Lisa stopped me. She had always been chatty, always quick with small talk. But that day, she lowered her voice like she was sharing gossip. "I saw Michael the other night," she said. I froze, my grip on the grocery bag tightening. "Oh?" She nodded, her eyes flicking over me like she was waiting for a reaction. At that new Italian place downtown, he wasn't alone. I swallowed hard. Who was he with? She smiled, almost apologetic, but not enough to soften the blow. Hannah. They looked close. The bag in my hand slipped, an orange rolling onto the sidewalk. I didn't move to pick it up. I just stood there, numb, as she gave me a sympathetic pat on the arm before walking away. I told myself it couldn't be true, that Lisa was mistaken, that she saw wrong. But then, a few days later, another friend mentioned it casually over text. It's nice they're spending time together. Must be good for him to have support. Support. That was the word she used, but I knew better. I had given Hannah my darkest secret, trusting her like a sister. And she had not only destroyed my marriage with it, she had stepped into the life I used to have. The image of them together, laughing in a restaurant, her hand where mine used to be, haunted me. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was replacement. And I realized then that I hadn't just lost my husband. I had lost my best friend too. The divorce was quicker than I expected. Michael didn't fight. He didn't argue over the house or the bank accounts. He didn't ask for anything more than his share, and he didn't look at me once during the proceedings. His lawyer did the talking, mine nodded along, and within weeks the papers were signed. Just like that, my marriage was over. I had imagined divorce would be a storm, screaming, begging, bargaining, but what I got was silence. He was already gone, already living a different life. For him, the paperwork was a formality. For me, it was the final nail in something I hadn't been ready to bury. I left the courthouse with a stack of documents that confirmed I was alone. Walking back to my car, I caught sight of my reflection in the glass doors. I looked smaller somehow, like a piece of me had been cut away. I thought of Hannah, how she had once sworn to stand by me through everything. Now she was standing by him. The whispers started soon after. A mutual friend sent me a message with a link. It was a wedding registry. Michael and Hannah. My hands went numb holding the phone, scrolling through their list of dishes and towels, the future they were planning together. I couldn't breathe. I thought about deleting the message, pretending I never saw it. But then the invitation arrived in the mail. A thick white envelope with gold lettering, my name written in careful script. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. You are cordially invited to celebrate the marriage of Hannah Miller and Michael Thompson. The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. My chest ached, but I couldn't look away. They hadn't just taken my secret and my marriage. They were asking me to witness their happiness, as if twisting the knife wasn't enough. I tore the invitation in half and dropped it in the trash, but the damage was done. It didn't matter if I went or not. They would walk down the aisle. They would smile for pictures. They would start a new life while I was left standing in the ruins of mine. The wedding happened a month later. I didn't go, but I didn't need to. Photos appeared online, shared by friends and tagged in posts. Hannah in a white dress, Michael in a tuxedo, their hands intertwined. I scrolled through them late at night, each picture a punch to the gut. Every detail felt stolen. The way he held her waist was the way he used to hold mine. The way she laughed at him was the laugh she once shared with me. They looked like the perfect couple, as if I had never existed. I told myself to stop looking, but I couldn't. It was like watching my life replayed with a different actress in my place. Then came the moment I couldn't avoid. A week after they returned from their honeymoon, I ran into them on the street. I had gone out to buy groceries, keeping my head down, trying not to draw attention. But as I crossed the corner, I saw them. Michael, holding Hannah's hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles the way he used to with me. Hannah, smiling up at him, the same smile she once gave me when she swore we would always be sisters. My feet froze. I couldn't move. They saw me. For a second, the world went silent. Michael's eyes met mine, and there was no anger, no regret, just indifference, like I was a stranger passing by. Hannah squeezed his hand and leaned closer to him, her smile never faltering. I wanted to scream, to demand how she could do this, how she could take everything from me and still look me in the eye. But my voice stayed locked in my throat. I walked past them without a word, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might collapse. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. My groceries were still in the bag on the floor, forgotten. That was the moment it truly hit me. It wasn't just that I had lost Michael. It wasn't just that Hannah had betrayed me. It was that they were together now. And there was no space for me left in the life I used to know. I had trusted Hannah with my darkest secret, believing she would protect me. Instead, she had used it to take everything I had. And the worst part was knowing they would keep building a life together while I was left with nothing but the silence of an empty house. Years passed, but the silence inside my life never lifted. After the divorce and their wedding, I withdrew from almost everyone I knew. Friends reached out at first, but I kept turning down invitations, ignoring calls, answering messages with short replies until eventually they stopped trying. It was easier that way. I worked, I came home, I went to bed. That was my routine. No surprises, no risks. The fewer people in my life, the safer I felt. Words had become dangerous. Every time I thought about opening up to someone, Hannah's face flashed in my mind, the moment she turned my trust into a weapon. I promised myself I would never give anyone that kind of power again. I didn't date. Men asked, co-workers hinted. A neighbor once slipped his number into my mailbox. I ignored them all. I didn't want to explain my past, didn't want to feel that panic in my chest at the thought of secrets unraveling again. I told myself I was better off alone. But the loneliness settled in quietly, deeper than I expected. Nights felt long. Holidays were unbearable. I avoided social media most of the time, but sometimes curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself scrolling through the profiles of people I used to know. Weddings, baby announcements, family trips to the beach. Their lives moved forward while mine stood still. I reminded myself that silence was safer. Silence couldn't be betrayed, but safety felt a lot like emptiness. One night, years after the divorce, I broke my own rule and clicked on Hannah's profile. Her account had always been public, filled with polished pictures and captions about gratitude and blessings. My finger hovered, ready to exit before the ache grew worse. But then a photo caught my eye, and I couldn't look away. It was Michael and Hannah sitting on their porch, a small child between them. A boy, no more than 3 or 4. His smile was wide, his hair the same shade as Michael's, his hands clutching Hannah's arm as if she were the safest place in the world. The caption read, "My whole heart in one picture." I stared at it until my vision blurred. The child they had together was the life Michael once wanted with me, the life we had tried for, failed at, mourned in silence. Now it existed, just not with me. I closed the app, but the image burned in my mind. The way Michael looked at the boy, pride written across his face. The way Hannah leaned into him, glowing. It was everything I could never give him. Everything I had lost. I told myself I shouldn't look again. But a week later, I did. Another picture, this time at a park, the boy on Michael's shoulders, Hannah holding his hand. More captions about love, about family, about dreams coming true. Each post was a reminder that my absence had been filled effortlessly. Where I had once stood, Hannah stood now. Where Michael had once hoped with me, he celebrated with her. The worst part was that they looked happy, not forced, not pretending, genuinely happy. I sat alone in my living room, the glow of my phone screen the only light. My house was quiet, my walls bare, my evenings empty. Their lives were full. I told myself to stop, to let it go. But the truth was, I couldn't. Because no matter how many years passed, one thought never left me. They had built a family on the ashes of my silence, and I would never have one of my own. I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone in my hand, the screen glowing against the dark. For years I had trained myself to stay quiet, to lock everything inside where no one could touch it. But that night, the silence felt unbearable, like it was pressing against my ribs. I opened the Notes app without planning to. A blank page appeared. At first I stared at it, unsure why I had even opened it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating, then moving almost on their own. The words came slowly in the beginning. A single sentence, a broken thought, then another. I wrote about Hannah, about the way her face had changed the night I confessed, how her eyes sharpened when she realized I had handed her something dangerous. I wrote about her voice on the phone, syrupy with fake sympathy, reminding me she was always here, while my marriage disintegrated because of her. I wrote about how she walked beside Michael in the life that was once mine, smiling the same smile she used to give me. The sentences tumbled out, jagged, uneven. My hands shook, but I didn't stop. Then I wrote about Michael, about the way he stood in the kitchen that night, asking why he had to learn about my past from someone else. I wrote about the look in his eyes, controlled but filled with disappointment, a look that cut deeper than any screaming could have. I wrote about the suitcase on the bed, the zipper closing, his voice at the door saying words that still pierced me every time I remembered them. You're the reason we don't have children. My chest tightened as I typed it, but I forced my fingers to keep moving. I wrote about the court dates, the signatures, the way he avoided looking at me as if erasing me from his life was as simple as turning his head. I wrote about the invitation to their wedding, the heavy paper that burned my hands when I held it. I described ripping it in half, but knowing the act changed nothing. They married, they celebrated, they smiled in photographs that I couldn't stop myself from seeing. I wrote about running into them on the street, Hannah holding his hand, their fingers interlaced, her smile unwavering as she looked at him like I had never existed. I wrote about the way Michael's eyes met mine with no anger, no sadness, just indifference. That moment replayed in my mind more than any other, because indifference was worse than hate. And then I wrote about the child. I described the photo I had seen, the boy sitting on Michael's shoulders, Hannah's arm wrapped around him. I wrote about how he looked like Michael, about how Hannah's caption called him her whole heart. I wrote about how long I stared at it, the screen glowing in my hands, until my chest ached so badly I couldn't breathe. I admitted things I had never allowed myself to say, even in my own mind. That I hated Hannah more for smiling in my face than for taking my husband. That I sometimes wondered if Michael ever truly loved me, or if he had just been waiting for the moment Hannah decided she wanted him. That every negative pregnancy test had felt like punishment, and that part of me believed I deserved it. The words poured out faster, my fingers moving until they cramped. I didn't stop to correct typos. I didn't stop to reread. I didn't care if the sentences made sense. I just needed them out of me, away from the prison of my silence. When I finally paused, the page was full. My heart pounded. My eyes burned. I scrolled through it once, reading pieces here and there. My chest clenched again, but it wasn't the same suffocating weight I had carried for years. It was something different, something like release. I sat there with my thumb hovering over the screen, debating what to do. I could save it. I could send it to no one, just keep it hidden. But the thought of it sitting there, waiting to be found, filled me with dread. Words were dangerous. I had learned that lesson too well. So I deleted it. All of it. Watched as the screen went blank, every word vanishing into nothing. For a moment, panic hit me. My chest tightened like I had just thrown away something vital. But then, slowly, a strange calm settled over me. The words were gone, but so was the pressure inside me. They no longer lived in my body. They no longer clawed at my throat at night. I had let them out, and now they belong nowhere. I set the phone down and lay back on the bed. The room was still, the silence unchanged. The house was as empty as it had been for years, but breathing felt easier. I closed my eyes, the darkness pressing in, the quiet wrapping around me. For the first time in so long, I didn't feel like the silence was my enemy. I understood something then. Not about Michael, not about Hannah, not even about myself. Only this. The void was safer than people. And silence, in the end, was the only thing that had never betrayed me. What would you do in my place? Please write your thoughts in the comments. I will be happy to read them